Thanks for joining us. We're going to talk about inbound marketing. Okay, we're going to talk about what it is. We're going to talk about why it's important right now. We're going to talk about how you apply to recruitment and all the things that you need to think about from there, and what you need to focus on. And then we're going to finish with kind of like 3 takeaways from everyone. It's kind of practical things that you can actually go and do. So I'm really delighted to be joined in alphabetical order, firstly by Alexander Tonelli, who is head of talent attraction and employer branding at Columbus. So Alexander, you can introduce yourself in a minute. Also by Barry O'Brien, who is the COO of Tech Nordic Advocates, long time in recruitment marketing, where he leads that area for the marketing in-house/in-house agency. You can tell us a little bit about that, Barry. And also delighted to be joined again by Clair, who has joined the famous Google Dave at Ph.Creative, who are old friends of ours. So firstly, Alexander, do you want to just kind of give us a couple of minutes to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. So my background is I studied the human resources and got into that really early, working with people, starting with having a consultant manager that I thought was doing a really bad job. So I was thinking I can do that much better. And from that, I started working in the recruiting field during my studies, and building on that to the IT field, IT traditional recruitment, and but always gravitating closer and closer to marketing, getting to learn about social media and doing projects together with marketing, until ending up where I am today, 5 years ago, when I got the opportunity to build a recruitment function in the marketing team. So my manager was the marketing manager, and my colleagues were the marketing team. So and it's been a really exciting and fun journey to where we're at today in this in-house recruitment function that I drive, a Scandinavian team. So that's the short version. And how
Tell us a little bit about Columbus. Columbus is obviously based in Stockholm, but just give us a couple of minutes on Columbus.
Yeah, so Columbus is a IT consultant company with headquarters in Denmark. So we have around 2,100 colleagues globally. So during the last couple of years, also got the opportunity to do a lot of global recruitment projects and to look into inbound recruitment, which we seem very successful, and try to copy it and paste it to other countries as well. So it's been a really fun journey there as well.
So do you sit within the marketing team at Columbus, but actually driving talent acquisition and talent attraction and employer branding for recruitment, or do you sit in the recruitment team and work with marketing?
So it's been in the marketing team for the first 3-4 years, and then we got a bit separated because we still sit sometimes with marketing, but it's been a part of marketing team, not a separated unit.
Great. Okay, Barry, do you want to give us a couple of minutes on yourself and Tech Nordic Advocates and marketing house/inbound agency?
Absolutely. Similar to Alex, I have a background in marketing and recruiting. I started my career in London. I'm originally from the UK, been in Sweden now for many years. That's obviously how I met Alex. We're both based in Stockholm now. And I worked for many years in print advertising at News International for the Times newspaper, on some of the recruitment sections there, and on the Sun and the News of the World newspapers as well, before coming to Sweden. And basically, I've always recruited in all the jobs I've been in, here in Sweden and within the UK. And basically, marketing has been at the core of a lot of the roles that I've had. And from that, I've gone on to, from working print advertising, going into digital advertising in the early 2000s, and onwards from there into social media marketing, content and inbound and influencers and kind of everything in between. And I got involved with Alex through the True events, True Stockholm, the famous Bill Boorman led events, and Alex was doing one of the talks there, and then I was working a lot at that time, doing a lot of like social media coaching, particularly LinkedIn coaching for students around Sweden, different universities. And I then went on to do a track myself at another event, and Alex and I, got close from there. And currently, I'm working, in several areas. Nordic Advocates is a startup and tech ecosystem spawned off from London Advocates, which is the biggest tech community in the UK, and above that, Global Tech Advocates, which is the largest tech community in the world, now in over 20 places. And basically, I head up Sweden now as part of my role, and that involves a lot of sort of content marketing, some of the inbound philosophies, not all of it, and some of it involves sourcing people for certain projects and things like that as well. And aside from that, I have some other smaller projects as a consultant, hiring, sourcing talent for some Swedish startups, and hiring marketing talent for projects that I'm involved with as well. So very, very mixed background, and mixed workload as well at the moment.
Bro, thanks, Barry. And Claire?
I'm marketing director at Ph.Creative right now. So this is quite a recent transition for me. I have been, I suppose, working within marketing most of my career, 20 odd years. Came into recruitment in 2006, started working for Martin Ward Anderson, which has been acquired by Randstad. So kind of cut my teeth in the recruitment world with a great agency and a great bunch of people there. And was really, I kind of fell in love, I suppose, with the recruitment process. Even though I was a marketeer, that whole sort of fast-paced, contact-led kind of communication style that recruiters have, and we're excelling at, kind of fueled my love for people recruiting, marketing for people, I suppose. So yeah, fast forward. Last couple of years, I've been in a number of different roles, head of marketing over at Broadbean, went over to Bullhorn for a stint heading their international marketing division, and then had a couple of years running my own consultancy as a marketeer to talent tech businesses, virtual CMO kind of element, and then found myself working with, as you put it, Scott, the most famous and lovely Google Dave. Dave's a business partner at Ph.Creative, which is an employer brand agency, and I have the pleasure of actually working with both Dave and Brian, who's the founder. First time in my career, I found myself surrounded by marketeers. I'm usually the only person that can put the marketing hat on. But yeah, this is like I'm a kid in a sweet shop right now with the colleagues that I get to play with every day. So yeah, it's all very good. That's where I'm at right now.
Bro, thank you. Hey, look, so I'm Scot McRae. I'm the co-founder of Candidate.ID. And so we'll kind of head towards, inbound marketing now. So I come from like kind of 15, 20 years of, I started in consumer marketing with Procter & Gamble, running Ariel, and then I moved into fashion with Hugo Boss. So I've got kind of fairly deep experience in that, how you make, how you either machine gun marketing or how you create desire. Nobody needs a Hugo Boss suit, right? It's about making sure that people want a Hugo Boss suit, right? But then I moved to B2B, and I moved to B2B and moved to B2B tech, and then built a demand generation consultancy on the back of marketing automation platform. The thing about B2B is complex B2B is all niche, okay? It's niche and it's super complex and long sales cycles. And so we built this business running products like Pardo, Marketo, Eloqua, HubSpot. And then I met Adam Gordon. And, so part of that, like 15 years of doing that, it was all kind of like, it's predominantly driven by outbound. You know who you're selling to, go build the database, get them all in the hopper, develop great content, top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, and just use kind of predominantly email marketing, followed around by LinkedIn, followed with kind of remarketing and things like that. But these people aren't active, right? They're not searching, they're not looking, okay? So it's all driven by kind of outbound. I met Adam who's the other co-founder of Candidate.ID, and was telling him kind of like the business needs for, you know, for marketing automation, why it grew so rapidly. And he said, look, he said, that's starting to happen in talent acquisition, right? It's starting to happen in talent, right? And what he meant was, because his business was all about professional or career related talent, you know, go source them, go connect to them. They're not looking, right? They're happy where they are, they're passive or whatever. Okay, but the thing is that when they get interested, they will go and learn about you. So they go off on this research journey. So it was kind of like, that's really logical. It's logical that we should take everything that the technology that solved it very well over here and applied over here. Okay. I did say to him at the time, you see all that stuff you do on social media? Yeah, we've tried that. It's a total waste of time. Okay. Doesn't deliver ROI. Inbound does not deliver ROI in B2B. Okay. But I've learned, you know, certainly in talent, because everybody's on LinkedIn, everybody's kind of there, that actually it does work, can be very successful. So I think that you've really, when you, as a starting kind of level, because you've got inbound marketing, you've got outbound marketing, you've got content marketing, you've got above the line, you've got below the line, you've got digital, you've got print. It's a big matrix marketing, right? And so I think the first thing to kind of always start with, and will say this to all the clients that we would be working with, both in B2B before, is that, look, what's the purpose of marketing, right? So the purpose of marketing is to establish hope in the buyer's mind or in the person's mind, right? Okay, I have a problem. Oh, they could solve it. That's interesting. And then the purpose of sales, or like recruiters or whatever, is to establish the vision of what's possible and then get it over the line, right? So that's a very simple kind of, what does marketing do or what does recruitment or sales do? But then you've got, okay, some people behave like consumers, okay? So they're active, they're looking, they'll see it, they'll buy it. And then you've got other people that will behave like B2B buyers. They're not looking, right? They're happy where they are. They're, and if they do see something, it will always be, and then you've then got another thing, which is like, you know, what's the difference between advertising and marketing? And so a really old friend of mine is a very senior creative director at Bartel Bogle-Haggerty and Saatchi and everything. And he said, look, because we argue about this all the time, he's like, look, advertising is the spark, okay? Doesn't matter how powerful your engine is, right? You need a spark to get it going, okay? So advertising is the spark. So the job opportunity is the spark, right? And then marketing that sits around it is the engine that powers the whole thing from there, okay? So it's always going to be the job opportunity that gets people's attention, okay? But then what happens from there depends on whether they behave like consumers or whether they behave like B2B buyers. So I think within all of that context, you've really got to, because it's really easy to spend a lot of money on inbound marketing and get nowhere because it's not the right levers to pull. Okay. So in that kind of, so in that sort of context, I'm going to go to Barry first because I went to Alex first time. I'm going to Barry. Okay, we're going to go around and say, okay, look, what is inbound marketing, right? Okay. And at the top level, why do you think it's so critical kind of like for recruitment? And then we'll kind of go down a level and we'll get into the details. But just generally first, Barry, you know, how would you describe kind of inbound marketing and its kind of application to recruitment?
It's about helping, isn't it? I mean, you spoke there about the job ad sparking interest, but I'm not sure that's always true in every role, because there's a lot of particularly highly skilled positions, for instance. The personalities are different, right, across the different roles. So somebody, let's take a software developer, being very generic here, but they might not always be looking for a role, but they're looking for a company or a fit, right? Because they might not, this might not be being treated well or whatever, or feel that they're getting the technical challenge in a particular job. So in my opinion, that's where the passive inbound process works, because a piece of content, I don't know, in a very simple form, or medium or something like that, right, could well trigger interest in a company to bring them towards you, rather than there being a position that's open, right? So that that would be a very simple example there.
Alex?
Yeah, for me, I have this quote that only 1% of Fortune 500 companies use other types of content than the job ads to their target groups. So that's a really good starting point for me in looking at inbound. So for me, and I agree with Barry on this, that I think the job ad might be in a later stage in the job changing journey, but it needs to be there. You have to have the job ad. You want to attract, convert, close, delight the candidate. And for me, inbound recruiting is the method and journey of looking at all the stages and being aware of all the stages and adding content, other types of content in the job ads to attract and create this spark and interest with the candidates. So that is inbound recruiting for me, and inbound marketing as well.
Claire?
I look at inbound marketing and I look at talent attraction, and I kind of feel like they're one in the same. So for me, it's a mindset, whether I'm putting a marketing campaign together or I'm putting a recruitment campaign together. It's about looking at what are the component parts that are going to tell that story, compel that message, and spark that reaction. So I like the idea that you suggested as well, Scott, about advertising being that spark. The way that I've been building an inbound marketing function for PH, even though we're an employer brand agency, it's been all about actually how do we draw our audience in, because our stages have kind of disappeared overnight with everything that's happened globally, COVID wise. Lots of businesses were kind of out in different marketplaces, they were on stages, they were talking about what they're doing, especially being in a B2B kind of environment. Whereas now we kind of need to have that kind of always on and funnel, if you like, of interested and hopeful people that we can actually solve problems for. So the way that I look at inbound marketing, like I say, I dovetail that into TA and make sure that I've got those component parts. So have I got an employer brand? Have I got an employee value proposition that makes sense? Have I got the messages there that I want to convey? And how do I then take it to market? And at the moment, I'm building the bus that basically takes us to market. So yeah, hopefully people get on sooner or later.
That's a good point, Claire, because I mean, as you say, this particular market at the moment, right, where there's not actual jobs necessarily, it's not the same volume of vacancies, right? So should a company just completely stop with their kind of inbound approach because they don't have any open vacancies? I mean, because obviously that's in simple forms losing momentum, losing brand positioning, things like that. So
I think this whole period should have been about looking at your employer brand, figuring out your sentiment, your story, your baseline, making sure that your foundations actually do convey the story of what it's like working in your organization, because the taps might be off right now, or they might be stalled, or they might be on hold. But at some point when we start kind of growing out of this place, out of this particular global economic situation, we're going to need talent, and we're going to need different types of talent in different places. And the recruitment methodologies for all of those different types of people are going to be different as well. But the one thing that will make sure that you land them and bring them in is that story of what it is that they're buying into. Where are they going to come to work every day, whether it's virtual or physical? Who are they going to be working with? What is the value proposition of that business?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is as well, obviously, we all know that these recruitments take time, right? So if you need to suddenly get up and running quickly, and some companies might need to hire people pretty fast to get up to speed. They haven't got time to be waiting another 3 to 6 months to get all the right talent. So they need to have that pipeline in place already, don't they? So
I think so I think that, and this is like, again, that sort of light bulb moment for Candidate.ID was, wait a minute, moving jobs, moving companies, moving careers, moving location is arguably one of the most important things that we do, every few years, right? And that the cadence might be increasing, but it's still a big deal, right? And then so you can basically you can put how talent behaves from a candidate, from a personal point of view, you can put it on a kind of spectrum of, very, very kind of transactional, much more closer to kind of consumers, right? Much closer to consumers. They see it and they're going to do something about it, because, maybe who they work for next isn't that important. Maybe it's kind of, it's not so career related. And then you go all the way up to here where actually it's a really, really big deal. It's very specialized. It's very career oriented. They're going to spend a long time like looking, and all the data from IBM and ERE will tell you that on average 6 months across 16 different independent touch points. So you've got the kind of spectrum of people that behave kind of like see it, buy it, right? Consumers. And then you got the people over here, which are very like B2B buyers who go and kind of nurture it, right? So, but the thing is that even if you just kind of see it, buy it, you're still going to go and check out the company, because whatever it is that gets your attention, whether it's like a phenomenal new product launch, whether it's, the number of people that must have gone and looked at Apple when the iPhone suddenly came out, for example, whether it's a phenomenal product story, whether it's a great kind of news story that maybe this company's done something unbelievable for another part of the world or another group, so whether it's a great kind of like news story about the company, but whatever it is, or it could be the job opportunity, whatever it might be, right? When they see that, they're going to go and learn about, they're going to try and do a few things, right? But they'll always end up at the job opportunity. If they're really interested, they'll always come back and study that, but the first thing they're going to go and do is learn about the company, and they're kind of trying to work out would this be a good next move for me, right? And that's all the company stuff. And they might read about what the CEO says, what the senior leadership says. They might look at the corporate website. They might look at, kind of Glassdoor. They might look at referenceability. They might look at their footprint. And they'll look at their footprint kind of across social media and quick scan to see how active they are. And if they're like, yeah, this looks like a good next move for me, then they'll come and we'll try to work out, could I see myself there? Right? Would I enjoy it? What's the culture? Could I do meaningful work? How are the teams organized? What would I learn from them? Where are the offices located? What's the coffee taste like? All that kind of stuff. And if that's a yes as well, then they'll come study the role in more opportunity. So you've got hundreds of marketing levers that you can pull as part of that whole journey, right? And so the fundamental difference between inbound and outbound. So outbound is you are going after them to try and solicit a response, whether that's sales or sourcing, messages one-to-one, whether it's email or text or whatever. You're going outbound trying to initiate the engagement. Inbound is where actually they sort of see something in their everyday cruising around, the internet, and that triggers something which then leads to them coming to you. Okay. And so, but even within inbound, right, there's a whole ton of stuff, from search engine optimization to paid acquisition to content marketing to advocates, influencers, ambassadors, to all the stuff that you might do across the different social media. It's a massive engine, right, in inbound. Yes. And then you've got, not only that, you've then got the site and making sure that the site is optimized, so kind of bring them down the funnel and get them to convert and all that kind of stuff. So I think that, why don't we talk about some kind of ideal kind of candidate journeys that you've kind of experienced or setting out to model and strive for? Alex, let's start with you. If you think about inbound, okay, where what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the talent that you want for Columbus. You're trying to get it to you. What are the levers that you're pulling, and from there?
Yeah, so for me, it all started. You need to do your basic homework, looking at your personas, meaning your main target groups that you want to aim for. So in our case, we had 3 personas: a developer, business consultant, and a project manager. So that is a function we need to survive as a business. Those roles we always need to attract and have in our company. So, but a concrete journey for me, if you look at a developer, one case there was, for example, I had a colleague doing a blog post about semantic code. So really nerdy blog post that he posted on on our blog page, and then on his LinkedIn channel, and then it went out as a SEO piece. And from that, we had a candidate Googling on semantic code and found that blog post. So from that blog post, he then converted to the job ad, and voila, he's an employee. So that's a really short and easy way to look at it. But basically that's how we want the journey, and helping in that process as well, adding for him to actually choose us. We have different points, such as the link to our Glassdoor page. We have an Instagram account where, as you say, that candidate, that developer can look and see is this a suit for me? Would I be able to work here? How does the coffee machine look like, etc.? So we're making it easier for the candidates to go through the journey and make the right decision, basically. But it starts with content created and generated from our employees, basically. That's one hire we had doing that steps.
Yeah, Barry?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Alex, I mean, obviously always looking at personas, right? I mean, an example is, well, SEO, basically. I mean, you mentioned it, Scott. I mean, that's an area, you know, as a digital marketer, I work in that, you know, not just in the recruiting sector, but, you know, with all kind of clients that I work with, making sure that, you know, their website is optimized, and obviously then the content that they're producing is optimized and is actually, you know, in demand. So just a very simple example in the recruitment sector is trying to, you know, improve the number of candidates for a client, you know, for their database, basically, which they can then obviously then attract more paying customers, because they can go to them and say, you know, we've got a client database in a very niche market. So we did a lot of work with, you know, looking back at their old content to see obviously what had worked, what hadn't worked in the past, you know, and getting sign-ups, for instance, or conversions, you know, depending on what the conversion was. And then, you know, obviously did a lot of Google keyword research, different regions, you know, different markets and stuff like that, and started producing fresh content that was, you know, in demand. And then that obviously improved the conversion rate that they were looking for. So, yeah, you know, that's an example from the recruitment world.
Claire?
I kind of feel like I've been breaking our recruitment marketing site down at the minute. So I turned up at PH, and our website was more of a career site than it was a commercial website. So I have been working with the Digi team really closely to transform it into a commercial website. So I've kind of almost been undoing what you've just been saying, but we're also trying to make sure that, you know, we've got everything that we do anyway, naturally. So we build career sites for our clients, and we basically use that as part of our sort of roadmap, if you like, in terms of them establishing or even having an EB, that an employer brand that is so solid and built like to your kind of ideas around personas, and, you know, it's got their value proposition, it's got their mission, their vision, everything is kind of almost on a page for us with our clients. And then they need that that kind of landing launch pad, again, because it does two things, doesn't it? It kind of pulls everybody in that you want to talk to, but you also want to get rid of those people that aren't necessarily right for your business. So that we have a philosophy as well that we bake into everything that we do, and it's basically Brian's latest book with his co-author Charlotte Marshall. It's called the Give and Get Employer Brand, and it basically is about repelling the many and compelling the few. So with inbound marketing, I think we all do this naturally anyway. We want those people who are really great potential customers to come and tell us that they want to buy. And working with the give and get philosophy is exactly the same for talent attraction. So what you're doing is you're saying, look, this is what you're going to get if you come here, but this is what we're expecting you to give in order to have that best relationship and the best experience possible. So it's not all about just attracting and engaging and kind of bringing everybody through. You don't want 400 inbound applications a week coming into 2 or 3 jobs. What you want is the 2 or 3 people who are absolutely best for that role or roles to really be highly engaged. So it's about filtering. I think you mentioned funnels earlier on, Scott, as well. So the way that we look at everything is that we look at a stage by stage, and we want to bring people through that journey. Everything has to align. So, you know, you've got the version of truth. We're always selling the truth in the content. We're also looking then at what we're putting out there, what the messages are, what are the key calls to action, where's everybody going to come in, what does the experience look like when you're applying, and then when you're in that interview process, is it the same as what we said it was going to be? So it's kind of almost like, if you're thinking about journeys, and I think one of the kind of teachings that stuck with me and stayed with me for quite a while was the moments of truth that Google taught.
Yep.
Like I did this thing back in 2014, and it was all about the moments that matter, and those moments of truth. And you always come back, whether you're a consumer, whether you're a candidate, whether you're somebody trying to get people into the business that you're working for, your recruiter, you're always looking for those moments that really stick with you. And I think that's what we're trying to do here, is create really great experiences and moments that matter.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, on you go, Alex.
Yeah, that was one good learning for me as well. I'm very passionate about candidate experience. So my goal has always been to build a world-class candidate experience. But one realization there as well is like, I need to align my experience with the experience that happens after we hire a person. So it's not just one experience and then I need to align the whole process. So maybe I shouldn't have a world-class candidate experience. Maybe it's okay to have some wow moments during the process, and so it's not that big of a dip when you start, and looking into the next part as well.
Sorry, I was just going to say, it makes it unique for that candidate as well.
Yeah,
which creates that kind of like, oh, it's not like it was when I went to interview X or Y. This feels a little bit more authentic. And I think, we're run the risk of, if we process everything in terms of this is best practice, we run the risk of really reducing that authenticity, because it becomes something that we've read in a book and we've just applied.
Yeah, exactly.
Directly. Whereas actually, if you can bring out the awkwardness of situations, they become more real, and that actually then makes it a better experience.
I think I did a brilliant webinar with Dave on in the middle of the pandemic, and it was kind of like on this, it was like, it's the moments between the moments that matter, right? Because that's where you get to truth and you get to authenticity. And I think it's really like, a lot of people, and this comes back to your point, Alex, around, hey, look, only 1% of the Fortune 500 use anything apart from jobs, right? There's a couple of there's reasons that sit behind that, right? And there's two big reasons that sit behind it. The first one is to do with positioning. And so positioning is like the fifth of the 4 Ps in marketing. It's actually the most powerful. It's the only one that kind of, it drives all the others, right? So positioning, I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But the other problem that they have is technology, right? They're all on their own technology, which I'll talk a little bit about. But I learned this really early on at Ariel. Okay, so Ariel was when I was running Ariel for Procter & Gamble, it was the second biggest brand in the UK behind Coca-Cola. Okay. And it had 31% market share, and Persil had like 28% market share. Right now, if you in your minds imagine what it would like to spend a day with Ariel or a day with Persil, okay, you would be able to describe what that was like. Okay, you'd be able to, well, actually, kind of, Ariel was quite kind of masculine. It was way more kind of like scientific and kind of like, bit intense. Persil was way more maternal. It was kind of like a mother, or, a demanding mother, right, as well. But that was written in at the core brand kind of proposition level, that Ariel was the leading scientist, right? Okay, and that then translated to, we were both going after housewives with children, but how you brought that brand alive, was just obvious in all of the marketing when you looked at the differences, and you'll see it right now, okay? And so you could imagine what it would be like to go and apply for a job and go through an interview. How would a hiring experience be different at Ariel as it was to Persil? And there's one thing here I wanted to share you, right, because this is one of the most powerful things. Imagine what it would be like to go and be hired by these guys, right? What would the end-to-end, like, messaging that I saw, learned a little bit more about this fast-growing kind of like trainer company, and then through a kind of hiring process, like, it's like, okay, it's like number 9, it's not going to be pretty, okay? And if we do the right things, we'll make money damn near automatic. It's really kind of out there in terms of, this is what we stand for, okay, and how you build a powerful brand. And so I think that you're absolutely right, Claire, is that so much of this is about turning away the talent that you don't want, okay? it's that kind of indifference is the alienation of brand, right? Indifference. You want people to be polarized by what it is that you're saying. But in order to be able to do that, you've really got to be very clear at the company level, both from a corporate marketing, but also from an employer kind of marketing point of view. You've got to be really, really clear about what it is that, how you're going to be different and how you're going to apply that through the end of the experience. And then obviously you need all the mechanisms for pushing it out so that people can see it. And then, because they're going to go on this journey, awareness, education, consideration, and then decision, right? They're going to go through that anyway. And all of, whether it's outbound pushing them through that or whether it's inbound kind of drawing them through this, you need to be very clear on that. So Alex, you've got some stuff on that.
I do. Yeah. No, I was thinking about so the learning for me from being in the marketing team is that it's we see so many things that are similar on the way we want to communicate. We were also a B2B company selling our products and services. So one big learning there was to position ourselves, we need to align our tonality over the company. So we can't have this fun and happy tonality in our social media, but then when we communicate in other steps of the process or in other things we do, it's not aligned at all. So that was really something we saw. So matching with marketing, we had trying to have the same tonality. Matching with marketing, we're using the same social media. Matching with marketing, looking at the same experience building and gathering the experience. So that was really epiphany and a journey for me to try to build that and align that. But also when I came in, we saw that they were really, really good at lifting our employees and getting them involved in the content creation, doing podcasts, doing blog posts and everything like that. Because nowadays, people don't trust companies. They trust the people working there. I mean, it's obvious truth, I know. But this is a huge opportunity that often goes missed out in a lot of companies where marketing might drive everything. But when you involve the recruitment side as well and the employee branding side, you can also get a huge boost for the people of the organization and lifting the brand and being, as you said, transparent and honest. I mean, one post we did was why people leave us, for example. So just telling the honest truth about why people leave us. And that was really a authentic way that we tried to position ourselves in our communication. And it was really, really successful as well.
I think just to jump in, Scott, on your point about targeting and personas, I mean, this is really where marketing expertise comes into, right? Because a lot of us that have been in marketing for a long time have, unfortunately wasted a certain degree of cash on campaigns that have ended up in front of the wrong people, right? Particularly with social media marketing, Facebook ads, had a lot of successful campaigns, but, you're definitely attracting perhaps buyers when we're talking about, selling products and things like that, that, are not really that interested, or for whatever reason, they're not in the right frame or the right time to buy, right? And it's the same with the recruiting. I mean, from my experience, I'm still surprised at how shallow people go on their persona work. They don't really do that much research in who exactly they want, or for some reason think that they can't really be that specific. As Claire said, like you're better off to get like 4 or 5 super, niche candidates rather than 50 that are kind of a bit okay. So taking that time before you start the campaign to really work out who exactly you want to target, where they're hanging out, and all kinds of sort of finer details. The more information you can work out, that you're looking for in somebody, the better that's going to serve you in the long run. Do you think, Claire? What was your?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. Really, again, it's kind of like back in September, I sat down with Brian and our strategy team lead as well, Julie. Julie handles the employer brand strategies for all of our clients, and what she does is phenomenal. So as a strategist, she and I can kind of almost talk at that level of like, this is where we want to go, this is why we want to do what we're doing. And where she breaks down for the sort of employer brand strategy, so many of the notes that she strikes literally are directly transferable into marketing strategy. So it was kind of like another, oh my God, I found another great friend that I can work with. Because, you know, as a marketeer through your career, you bump into people who've got really great experience, but it never almost marries up with where you want to go. So for me to be working with these guys, what we've done is we've actually really looked in the mirror and said, okay, does not just our employer brand, but actually our commercial brand really stand up to this harsh reality of what it's like to work in this business? Now, Ph.Creative is probably one of the most unknown employer brand agencies in the world, but I tell you now, we are amazingly brilliant and global players. We've got some phenomenal clients and we work with really massive accounts. But at the same time, we've never really been the people that stand up and kind of go, oh, look at us, this is what we've been doing. So, and again, that's not my style. That's not why I'm here. What I'm here for is to enable the stories of success to basically resonate with other people who are looking for that type of success themselves. So we have put our brand under the microscope. We've put our employer brand under the microscope. And like you said, Alex, we've sat down together and kind of gone, right, okay, we need these kind of people to help us grow the agency. And actually over the last 6 months, we've grown exponentially in terms of headcount, but we've also had that churn because this has been a really tough time for lots of people. And being a UK based business with people throughout the US, we've just opened up in APAC as well. We've got people all over the place, but we were so close and so tight. Head office is in Liverpool and I'm in London. So as much as I've known Dave and Brian for years, I haven't seen them since, you know, I started pretty much, well, probably even a couple of years now since I last saw them in person. And that's obviously the same for everybody that works there. So that harsh reality of what it's like to be part of a team in a business with a vision, it kind of almost needs to be always on. It needs to be always communicated. And I think if you're going to go out there and attract new people into an organization, you've also got to make sure that that communication, the purpose, the vision, the mission is also washing consistently and continuously through your environment, because whatever you're putting out through social media, through your job adverts, through your career site, through the news channels, through your press releases, everything else, that will literally hit a brick wall if it doesn't ring true as soon as someone applies or picks up the phone and talks to somebody who actually works there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was going to say, and this comes back to the point I was going to make about Alex. Okay, there's only 1% of enterprise organizations are doing anything else apart from just pushing jobs, right? Now, I think there's a few things that sit behind this, but one of them is that unless you've got the right technology, okay, you've got to do something to solicit a response from them people you're trying to attract. You've got to get them to either go yes or no, right? Okay, and the fastest way, if you're a busy recruitment team, is just to push jobs on them, because that's that look, yes, I'm interested, or no, I'm not, take me out, okay? So that's why so much of it's pushed. Whereas if you've got the technology, I'm going to say marketing automation, obviously, if you've got the technology, which you then know, you're going to be able to see that people are looking at the jobs. Once you can see that, then you can relax and you can actually tell the story that you want to tell, which is a story about the company and the story what it would be like to work there, right? And you can get your people to do it and all the rest of it. So that's one reason why they don't have the right technology. The other reason is that actually this whole inbound engine is really, it can be huge. The workload that's involved in doing it is huge. And if you can't tell what's working, okay, if you go to the team and you go, right, head of data science, I need some stuff from you on what it's like to be a data scientist here. He does that, or it's extra stuff to what he's got to do. And if you can't tell him if it's worked or not, like this is all the metrics around how engaging it was, it just becomes attritional, okay? And people get tired by this kind of content generation engine. So you need the technology to be able to work out what's working, what's not working, what's making a difference. So it's going to come back to you, Barry, and just say, like, all the experience that you've got so you got your personas, okay? You got your story, from with Clair or whatever. Okay, now you've got to decide which channels and what kind of inbound levers are we going to start really focusing on. What have you seen that's worked, and what would you say to people in terms of focus, kind of focus on this?
I think it obviously really depends on the role, right? I mean, the more kind of say techie roles, there's obviously different platforms that are being used more often, right? So Reddit was a classic one for a while. Simple groups, within Facebook worked a lot for a while. I was involved with like growth hacker groups, for instance, and people were doing a lot of content in there, which was bringing people, wanting to work with them personally and things like that, right? So I think it's about, obviously identifying where your target personas is, right? I mean, it can be a million different places. Is it offline, right? We all assume that everybody's, online these days, but, there's still a certain degree of people that want to remain under the radar. I mean, going back to software developers who are completely fed up being on LinkedIn because they're getting hounded all the time by recruiters, right? So, where else can you find them? GitHub and other, more niche message boards or, things that are out there, right? So I think it's really, as I say, a case of identifying, where people are and then getting in front of them in a passive way, of course.
Yeah, and just building on that as well, Scott, as you said, I mean, there's also this knowledge gap for a lot of recruiters and working with marketing and getting to learn about marketing. There's a lot that they can get and learn from marketers, but also the other big challenge for recruiters is obviously the reactiveness of recruitment. So just doing a lot of recruitments all the time, so you don't have the time to create the content piece, or you don't have a time to create inbound material, which is a huge challenge if we want to have the creation in the recruitment team. So that's been a really big challenge to get stuck in the reactive side of recruitment and doing inbound. But there are ways to go there and do it, because when you realize that what the content you create is like a digital salesperson, it takes time to create it, but when it's there, it's always working for you. It's evergreen content. It's always working. So that's you just need to get there and take the time to create the content, basically.
Yeah, I think that comes down to kind of like what we would call the operating model, and so there's so much of, you will get that kind of concern around, like, we're absolutely flat out, kind of dealing with the kind of administration burden of applications that come in, that we actually can't get to the stuff that's more strategic and is more proactive, and how do we going to build that engine? And it's kind of like, Einstein's definition of insanity is like, well, if you keep doing the same thing and expect stuff to be different, that's insanity, right? If you see where this is going and it's not working, you're going to have to do something else. So if you want to do something else, the first thing that you've got to do is understand that what gets measured is what gets done. So you're going to need to make somebody responsible for lead generation, right? For the recruiters to convert. You need one throat to strangle for that, okay? And then once you put that person in place, they will drive the kind of like content plan and where do we do it here and there. And as you say, kind of, Barry, go here for these ones, go there for those ones. And the extra point I would make to that comes back to your kind of growth hacking, because probably not a lot of people who listen to this will ever heard of growth hacking. And it is just some kind of bullshit term for marketing, which means agile. It's like,
that's a whole nother webinar.
Yeah, it's just like, try lots of things. Okay, that looks like a good idea. Let's go test it. Okay, let's try it. Let's test it. See if it works. Refine and scale. Okay, and that's growth hacking, right? So, Barry, you've got to jump off because I know you've got a board meeting. But like 3 takeaways that you would leave, for the audience on kind of the application of inbound marketing to recruitment.
Obviously, as I've said, several times, identify who you want to speak to. Who is your target audience, your persona. Make sure that you definitely are speaking to the right people, right? So that's the first one. A very simple one is obviously to, even if you don't have massive resources, is just to get your website sorted out, right? Make sure that it's properly optimized for search. Make sure you've got the keywords on your website, and make sure that, you know, the people that are coming there are the type of people that you want. And as you said, Scott, have a call to action. You know, you've always got to be, you know, asking for something. It can be a simple thing like registering for a monthly newsletter, so you get them into your funnel, and can then start, you know, thinking about converting them in other ways, and pushing them in different directions within your business. So that's 3 simple things that you can do on a low budget. Plenty of free tools out there for analyzing your website, you know, for SEO and things like that. So there's not really any excuses.
Cool, great. Well, look, Barry, thanks for joining us. And
my pleasure.
Appreciate you got to drop off. We got some questions now, so we're going to jump to questions before we do the kind of takeaway. So, Claire, right, what do you think about AI to help create the personas and then programmatic ads to distribute the messages? And have you got any great? I mean, you'll have worked with people that have really mastered inbound recruitment, or your experience have. Do you have any great, you know, examples?
I think just to start with the AI question, I'm a little bit still like skeptical over AI for persona building. I know there's loads of really great applications of AI through marketing and obviously into recruiting as well. But I would say that the persona piece is just about talking to the people that work with you and really getting under the surface of who they are, what drives them, what's their ambition, what keeps them up at night. You know, it's not just a question for C-suite. When we look at C-suite marketing, there's a whole list of questions that we need to put ourselves in the mindset of talking to a CEO or a COO. But actually what we need to do is we need to think about, well, what is it like being a marketing manager? What is it like being a HR manager? What is it like being, I don't know, a software developer? And actually figuring out what are the questions that we need to ask in order to understand that person and what drives them more. That's the stuff that you can get through in workshops. Your HR, head of people, head of talent should be able to run a workshop and bring people together and kind of go, right, you guys all work in a similar level or department or function, or you are part of a process. Tell us a bit more about you, and then you can use that directly to create your persona maps. I think programmatic is absolutely essential in this day and age. And we've talked about all of the hundreds of thousands of channels that we can actually get messages out there on. The best way for you to spend your money is by using targeted advertising. Programmatic does that for you, and that uses the very best of AI as well. So I definitely think it's worthwhile having chats with people who can deliver the programmatic piece for you, especially around campaigns that are, I'd say, business critical. So if you're looking for a specific cohort of people to come and join your business, you're hiring en masse, or you're hiring for certain seniority and roles, you need to know where those people are. And actually there's so much data that can help you point you in the right direction. So I think that's really great. One thing that's not been mentioned actually, Scott, is what you guys do around the candidate journey, if you like, or the vision of the heat map, I think it's called, that you have within the product, where you can understand just how engaged somebody is before you actually directly reach out for them. So you can watch, it's kind of a bit stalky, but it's not, it's great. We use
it's like a lead scoring, right?
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah,
it's lead scoring. So we're mapping someone's journey through our content, through their self-education, to the point where they're kind of absolutely there, you know, 90% there in terms of making a decision. All you're doing then is using a simple outreach, going, look, you know, we've seen that you like all of this stuff, and we know that you've read that stuff. Where are you at right now with your decision-making process? Or is there anything else that we can help you to invite?
Yeah, I think that's, and that's what really, I mean, that's what marketing automation technology was, what solved that in B2B, where, you know, the buyers kind of basically disappeared from sales guys, because all the information that they needed to learn about the company and learn about the solution and learn about what it was work for, all that, you know, all that kind of stuff, it was all out there. So they were going to do that. They were going to go on that self-educated journey. And unless you could track them and then kind of track them and see all that using cookie-based tracking, and then you put a scoring kind of algorithm against it, you can't actually work out what their stage of interest is, because you're still flying blind. So we all of like kind of inbound or content marketing, and what you're trying to do is you get your personas, you work out what's the right story that we want to tell them. You work out where they are and what channels it is that you're going to do, and then you just go do it. But you make sure that you've got a marketing automation platform underneath, because it's going to tell you what's working and what's not working, and it's going to tell you who that you should call, right? It's going to tell you who's cold, who's warm, who's hot, and then you know what to do with them next. So Alex, I'm going to come to you around, we've got a question on candidates, personas, and EVPs. Do you have different EVPs for your company, or just one?
Quick answer is we have one EVP, but looking at it, so one EVP that we decided the whole company, where we included all the employees and had workshops, etc., etc. But there are different parts of the EVP that are stronger in certain countries, where they want to push certain parts of it more than other parts of it. So it's adopted country specifically, but it's under one common EVP. So that's how we have done it. So yeah,
it's clever. Okay, so I'm going to go to like 3 takeaways, Claire, and then 3 takeaways, Alex.
I think the first one is definitely think like a candidate. So I went through this process thinking about my onboarding, I suppose, with PH. I'm a bit of a serial recruit, I suppose. I'm constantly kind of looking at employee experiences and candidate experiences. So I think about a triangle, and that's the impact that I'm going to have, the value that I'm going to get, and the learning that I'm going to get as a person within that business and with that organization. And I think if you can apply those 3 principles or those 3 questions to your talent attraction campaign, which is your inbound recruitment campaign, then I think you have got a kind of really great framework to build everything else around. So that'd be one. The second one I would say is go and check out our Goosebumps book. You've got here, this is actually Dave and Brian. They wrote it ages and ages ago, Getting Goosebumps. It's the inbound marketing Bible, really, for inbound marketing and recruitment. I read it and worked with, well, I didn't work with Dave. I knew that Dave and Brian were producing this a good couple of years ago. It's probably about 5 or 6 years old now, but it's still a really great book to have to hand. And it's got loads of frameworks and loads of really great kind of messaging in terms of how to build everything. And then the only other thing that I can suggest is if you want a copy of Give and Get, which is Brian and Charlotte's latest book on the employer brand philosophy that that's out right now, give me a nudge, send me a direct mail. I'll put my email into the chat bar, and I'll get you a book out in the post.
Bro, Alex, 3, that's great, Claire. Thanks for the offers. And Alex, 3 takeaways.
Yeah. So as a recruiter, before you start with inbound, for me, you need to have a clear set of recruitment process. Your process needs to be in line before you start working with inbound. That is one lesson I really learned during the hard way. So get your process in order before looking at inbound. Just a learning I want to share. Then also we have the inbound certification from HubSpot that you can do for completely free. It's really nice educational material. You can get an inbound certification. So that is really a recommendation. And the last takeaway, I mean, just start where it's needed right now. So some companies already attract candidates. So maybe you need the content you need to create is more conversion content, or it's closing content and so on. So just look into what you have today and build on that. And a bonus, have a workshop with marketing to look into which channels are common channels where you can reach your candidates and customers.
Perfect. Well, hey, Luke, thank you so much. Claire, Alex, lovely to chat. It's like we're 1 minute over, so we're going to wrap up. Thanks to everybody that kind of joined us this afternoon. Obviously, we'll share the on-demand version, and have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
You too.
Take care.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.